even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Mark
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He's Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. We had a guest scheduled, Pierre, our good friend Jeff Marek, but unfortunately he's having some technical issues. Will not be able to join us right now, but he promised we will get him on later in the week. So, Pierre, you're stuck with Murph. It's tough, but you got to do it.
He just didn't want any hard questions. He's a really good friend. He's a real professional, and I know we'll get him on there. I know there were some technical difficulties, so it's all.
And he's got his kid's got a baseball game he's trying to race to, but I appreciate that he was even going to try and squeeze us in. So we will get Jeff Marek on later in the week, and we've got plenty to talk about, Pierre. Look, when last we left, Pierre, there was one person that was saying, I'm not going there just yet. I'm not going to write off the Edmonton Oilers just yet, and that was you. So credit to you, Pierre. You did not write them off, and neither did they. The Edmonton Oilers believed in themselves, and man, did they show it in a big way. An 8-1 drubbing of the Florida Panthers. Connor McDavid, not that he hadn't showed up in a series. He had been doing a lot of other things other than scoring, but he finally showed up big time on the scoreboard. Pierre, just your first impressions after that game and sort of a look ahead.
I felt really bad going into that game for the Florida Panthers. I didn't like the way their off-day news stuff went. Too many guys have too much to say. That's not how it should work in that environment. The coach should have a lot to say. The captain should have a lot to say. A couple of the lead dogs should have a lot to say, but not the entire team.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. It's almost like they let their guard down. Mm-hmm. It happens. It's the hardest game to win. I know it's used all the time, but the hardest game to win is Game 4. But the hardest Game 4 to win is Game 4 on someone else's ice.
Yes.
It's really hard to win. Mm-hmm. I've lived the dream, Jimmy. I've been through them. I know what it is. And we were very fortunate. We were able to do that, win 2 closeout games on the road, win a Game 6 on the road to close a team out, and win a Game 4 on the road to close a team out.
The old Garden, right?
Winning a Game 7 on the road.
Yep.
And so I kind of know how it all comes down. And it's easy to say it, it's hard to do it, but there's certain protocols you have to follow. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure Florida followed those protocols going into Game 4. I think they'll be much more ready, much more in tune, and much more focused.
Yes.
I think they lost their focus going into Game 4.
Well, and speaking, as we said, we were going to have Jeff Marek. We will get him on later in the week. But he made a good point on his show earlier today, Pierre, and he said he saw some quotes. I don't know if you saw them as well, where some of the guys were admitting, and it might have actually, I think Elliott made the point to Marek, and he said, they openly admitted that when they saw their families coming in to be there for that game because it's a potential clincher, and when the reality of what was at stake and that the clincher was finally here hit them, they admitted we froze a bit.
Yeah, so I'm just telling you, I didn't need to hear that. I saw it. I was really concerned going into that Game 4. I'm like, oh boy,
yeah,
they got to pull the reins back because once you get soft, I'm not saying they were soft, but once you get into this is going to be easy. Once you get into, okay, this is what we're going to do with the cup. Once you get into, this is what we want the rings to look like. Now, those aren't all their quotes, but they're thinking that.
Oh, they're human.
Based on what I read, they were thinking that. So they'll be better now. I would expect they're going to be a lot more prepared and focused for the game tomorrow night, just like I think the Celtics tonight, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Be a lot more focused than what they were in their Game 4 on the road in Dallas.
Pierre, I tell you, it's funny you bring that up because we're watching that game, the Panthers Oilers, and my girlfriend Monica said to me, she made a great observation. She said, is it me or are these series just so parallel right now? And they're different sports, I get it, but just sort of the flow, the ebbs and flows of the series of the NBA final and the Stanley Cup final have had a lot of similarities. So it'd be interesting, like you said, we'll see tonight in the NBA if the Celtics can refocus, which I think they will. And then we'll see again tomorrow night in Game 5. The one question I think a lot of people are asking, right, because he's been so invincible and so in a zone, is Bobrovsky going to be able to regroup the way maybe the rest of the team does? Does this affect him at all? When you give up that many goals, you get pulled. Can he bounce back as well as maybe, the skaters can?
I think so. One of the things I really admired, I was watching the game with a bunch of different people, a scout from Columbus, a scout from Philadelphia,
Cool.
a general manager in the NHL, a former general manager in the NHL. They were over at my home. We were all watching. My son was here. The one thing that really stood out, I can tell you, is when Paul Maurice decided to pull Bobrovsky, almost everybody to a man said, smart, good pull, veteran coach. Get him out. He's seen enough. It's not on him. It's on the team. We weren't ready. I'm going to take that. That's going to be on me. And that's not going to happen again. So, I do think he can bounce back. I understand how people could think maybe he can't, but I think he'll be able to bounce back.
I'm with you too. And, given the way we've seen him kind of – I'm just saying with this contract, since he's been in Florida, the way he has improved each year. When this contract started, Pierre, a lot of people are saying, "Oh man, this is are the Panthers going to regret this?" Because it didn't start too well at the beginning of his tenure in Florida, and he progressively got better. And obviously, over the last 2 to 3 years, he's been really good. So it's like you can tell there's been a lot of maturity and mental fortitude that has built up over these last few years. That he's probably the right guy that can bounce back from this for sure.
I agree.
I just look, Pierre, you talk about saying the right things. I'm with you too. And, you mentioned that to me today in our prep talk before we got on the air. That's been something I think that's been the bread and butter for Florida too, is that they've always been good at translating or transferring the same message, right? Maurice has done a great job of kind of deflecting the attention away from his players. Let me talk about all those things. You guys just have this one unified message. I'll splinter out into the other topics. And it's a good catch by you that you noticed heading into the game that was a little off kilter, so to speak.
Yeah, but that's human nature. It's veteran teams, and that's when Paul's been to the final before. It's a little bit different now than what it used to be. But that's when the head coach says, "Here's the message. This is what we're putting out. This is what we're going to talk about, and this is how we're going to approach Game 4." And everybody's got to sing it from the same songbook. I know people at home are probably saying, "Oh, that's a little cockamamie." It really doesn't happen that way. The best teams, it does. With the best teams, it does. I can tell you right now. So I still think Florida's in the driver's seat. It's easy for me to say they're up 3-1, but I think there'll be a different level of commitment. I admire the fans in Edmonton unbelievably. They showed a lot. They showed a lot. Their players showed a lot. Stuart Skinner showed a lot, especially after the first Florida goal. I was like, here they come. Mm-hmm. He had to make a couple saves so that it wasn't tied up. And he
made a big one. I don't have my notes. He made a big one. It was, I think, early in the second, Pierre, before they started to go. There was a break, not a breakaway, but like a 2-on-1. But anyhow, you're right.
There was one in particular. You're right about that.
Yeah.
Well, all I'm saying is, like, the right guys stepped up, but the fans. I think we talked about this on Friday. It might have been Thursday, but Friday we were just talking about, look, that crowd's going to be the real true seventh man for Game 4. It doesn't mean it's going to last the whole series, but it's going to make a big difference. If they can get the first 10 minutes under their belt, it's going to make a big difference, and they did. And the crowd was phenomenal. That's probably, for this Stanley Cup playoff, that's probably as good a crowd as we've had a chance to witness in the entire playoff.
Oh, yeah. It was unreal. It was so loud. And it was kind of a festive atmosphere. Once I knew the game was in hand, they're singing songs.
Why not?
Yeah, it was great. It was good. And they don't know. Hey, that might be the last time they see this team for the season, so enjoy it,
Well said, Jimmy. Really
Pierre, one other thing, too, I wanted to get your take on, too. What was the key for you? And like I said, I'm not saying that he wasn't doing a lot of great things out there. And, again, I'm not pinning it on him at all. But what was the key for you for McDavid to translate his play into points, into goals?
Domination of the puck with speed. They tried to angle him. There were a couple times where they had him angled off pretty good, but in that Game 4, it was you can contain him. You just can't stop him. So there were some containment moments, but there wasn't a whole lot of stopping moments. And there wasn't a lot of stopping moments because he was so in charge of the puck. And Jimmy, there are very few people. McKinnon can do that. But, you go around the league, there are not a lot of guys that can play at that speed and still do the brilliant things that Connor does.
Right.
There just aren't a lot of, like, Sidney Crosby's a phenomenal player. He doesn't do it at that speed.
No.
Go around the league. You tell me who's going to be doing it.
McKinnon's closest.
McKinnon
is closest to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And then it's almost like they're in their own division, and there's another second division after that.
The one guy in Ottawa that's got a chance is Stützle.
Yes,
he's a super elite speed guy with really good hands and processing ability, but he's not there yet.
No,
he's not there. But I think he got a chance to be there, but he's not there yet. And then you got to look around the league, and they're not that many guys that can do that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Another thing I noticed, you talked about possessions. I noticed a lot, Pierre, that and remember I had said, and I did it in a little fanboyish way, I'm like, I want them going to the net in a heat-seeking missile. Okay, so they did do that, though. They did find a way to go up the middle more than they have throughout the series, Pierre. And it felt like when they were coming up through the neutral zone, they were doing a good job at pushing Florida a little to the side or pushing Florida back, which gave them space to then meet in the middle. A couple of those goals, like McDavid's was one, and I think Darnell Nurse was another one where McDavid fed him and he came right in the middle there. So I noticed that they were doing a great job of that. And if they can continue to do that, they might have some success in Game 5.
Why not? And that's a good catch.
Yep.
I agree with that, Jimmy. That's a really good catch. My concern for Edmonton more in Game 5 than Florida. Now they've been told how great they were, and everybody's, and so it's not their fault. It's just how it works. So you got to make sure, if you're Edmonton, you got to make sure that you have a great start. So that seed of doubt that you planted in 4 carries over to 5.
Yeah, I think the first 10 minutes are huge.
If you don't continually grow off that negative seed of doubt you planted in Florida's head from Game 4, you're not winning Game 5. You're not winning. You just won't.
You mentioned, Pierre, like you're talking about when you were coaching, and you guys, Pittsburgh did it a lot. And one of those, I believe, where you swept on the road, if I'm not mistaken, was 91 against the Bruins, right? In Boston Garden.
We won in 6, but we had to win the last. We won 4.
92. 92 was on the road.
92, we won 4 straight. But it's interesting, Jimmy. In 91, we lost the first 2 games in Boston. And then we won 4 straight, beat them in 6.
Yep.
I'm just telling you. So we played Boston 2 years in a row in the Eastern Final.
We won 8
straight games against.
So when you're going in on the road like that, and I guess that's your second time around, right? So these guys haven't been in that situation yet where they can do that. I guess my question is, how do you? We talked about off the top here, getting ahead of yourselves a little, or kind of veering away from the focus that how, as a coach, were you guys keeping them just zoned in, not letting all the magnitude of the game, the potential of hoisting a cup or so? How do you compartmentalize that?
The prep is so important, and you just don't let your guard down. And it's really pointed, and it's mostly positive feedback, but sometimes it's going to be a little bit of, hey, we got to be better here, or we got to be. Guys aren't getting eviscerated in tape room. I can tell you that right now. If you do it, you're not going to win. It's just that's what people that are losing do. So you just make graphic points. For instance, Edmonton, one of the things they can build off of, their game through the neutral zone. It was much better in Game 4. So that's a positive they can build off. How'd that happen? Well, we came out of our zone cleaner, came out through the middle a little bit more to address your point. For Florida, it's pretty simple. We lost our forecheck, and our identity is a forecheck team. And if we don't forecheck, we're not very good. So we're going to get back. So the coach has to keep guys understanding what the characteristic of the team is.
Okay.
And once you lose that, then you got to reel them back in. But with a mature team, and we had one that had won, it was easier the second time. They knew the faster you get out of a series, the easier it is to go into the next series, because guys aren't going to get dinged up. It was a more, I don't want to say violent, because that's too strong a term. It was a more robust game back then than it is now. Far more robust.
Pierre, another thing that we discussed that needed to happen for Edmonton happened in this game too, was some depth guys getting on the score sheet. You know, I look at McLeod. He played a hell of a game. I don't know any other guys that stood out to you, but
Dylan Holloway, somebody that's been standing out all playoff. He hasn't been rewarded with a lot of points, but he had the Bobby Orr mimic goal, you know, where he's flying through the air. Dylan's done a really good job. I mean, they got to be excited about him. Yep. Tony Granato coached him in Wisconsin, and I talked to Tony about him a lot. You know, and he always thought Holloway had a huge upside, and I agreed with him because I had seen Holloway play, obviously, World Junior and play Tier 2 before he got, obviously, to play at Wisconsin. And you could see there was a lot of upside there. It's starting to come now for him, which is really good. So those are two depth players that really stood out, I thought.
That was a guy, if I'm not mistaken, Pierre, when we had Speck on earlier in the playoffs, I think he brought him up. He's kind of an X-factor type guy that they needed.
He brought him up 100%. He did.
Yep.
He did.
Yep. Good stuff. Pierre, you look, though, so now we're, you know, you're sitting there, you're Knobloch. You've never been in this situation before. Maurice carried a team all the way to the final. He has that experience. What's it like for a coach who's never been in this?
I didn't have much to say, so I didn't have to worry about that much. You know, I had Badger and Scotty, so I for me to make stuff up would be unfair. But here's the one thing Knobloch has that's really important. He's got Paul Coffey there.
Yep.
And Paul's never been through it as a coach, but he's been through it with the mindset of a player. And he's been on the positive side of it, and he's been on the negative side of it. And I think Paul's a huge asset.
Yeah.
For that. Paul's a really good asset for that.
So draw on that. Like we say,
I don't
know people draw on that.
I mean,
you know,
every day I'd be talking to Paul about it if I were Knobloch, and I'm sure he is. I mean, look at Paul. Paul's really good. Paul's a hockey maniac. He loves hockey. You know, I'm just telling you, he loves hockey. He was. I think I told you this. He was always the first guy in the dressing room the day of a game. He was there with the trainers. He was drinking coffee. He was chewing gum. He was taping his sticks. He was untaping his sticks. He was working on his skates. He was a hockey junkie, Paul. Yeah. Total hockey junkie.
That's why you guys connect. Kindred spirits, right?
Man, one of Paul's first dates with his wife was in the coach's office in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, watching the Grey Cup. I'm not kidding you. Winnipeg versus Toronto. When Gretzky owned the Toronto Argonauts, they were playing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the Grey Cup. And back then you had to have a satellite to watch the Grey Cup in the United States. And so we had the satellite at the office, and Paul and his wife came over and watched it with me. I was there. They said, sure, come on over.
Yeah, that's great. Your final question I have to you about that game. We'll move on. We'll look ahead a little more to Game 5 here, and then some other NHL topics I want to bring up with you, Pierre. But to you, was it easier? And I'm saying in the playoffs, not just in general, but more specific to the playoffs. Is it easier to move on from a blowout loss as opposed to a tight, almost, you know, heartbreaking overtime loss or something, or does it matter?
I think it does matter.
Okay.
A loss is a loss. It could be by 8 or it could be by 1. 1 is harder to overcome than 8. 8, you just say, it's over. We're moving on.
Like the board. That's it, right?
All over. You know, I was talking to the players that I trained this morning because we were talking about the game Saturday. They get the weekends off from such a nice guy. They don't have to go to the weekends.
It's better.
I think it's more because I need the break than them. We were talking, and that was one of the things I said, you know, it really doesn't matter if you lose 8-1 or 2-1, you lost. So you can't have revisionist history. You just got to move on. I think probably in this case, Florida's saying, yeah, we let that get away. We're not doing that again. If it's an emotional, hard loss, which a 2-1 or 3-2 game is, that's different.
Okay.
This one I don't think will hurt them that much. I think it'll get them more focused, actually. I do.
Because I'll tell you, Pierre, I remember, you know, when I was a fan going to the games with my grandfather growing up in the 1990 Stanley Cup Final, Game 1 was a triple overtime game. Glenn Wesley. Peter Klemer. And it was almost like they're not going to say it. They're not going to acknowledge it. But, I mean, it was almost like this feel when you would see the players talking in the news, or even just as a fan walking out, it was almost like, was that just the series in Game 1? Like, is that it? I know you're not supposed to think that way. It's a negative way of thinking, but it was almost like it just took the wind right out of the sails right off the get-go. And so I'm wondering, did you ever have a game where you walked away and you felt that sucked a lot out of us. Like, I hope we can bounce back from that.
Yeah, I'll tell you one. We got thumped by Washington the first round in '92 in Game 4. We got crushed. Washington scored 8 goals on us. Cicerelli,
oh wow, so much like this.
Yeah, Cicerelli got 4 of the 8. We were down 3-1. All people wanted us. We were not in good position in Pittsburgh at that point. They were mad at us. They were really mad, and they deserved to be mad. We didn't play well,
right?
And we ended up winning 5, 6, and 7 and won the series. But that required a lot of strenuous work. But we were that day. The travel to Washington was pretty quiet. Quiet, and then that. You know the story. We changed everything. We changed our neutral zone. We changed our forecheck. We changed a couple of our matchups, and we ended up winning the series. But the players got energized by those changes. The players were energized by the changes. They really were.
How do you know when you're like? How do you find that balance and not make too many changes, Pierre?
Identify one thing, and Scotty brought it up on our show. I think about 7 or 10 days ago. It was really good. I was glad he remembered it and brought it up. They had those mobile defensemen. So they had Hatcher, they had Iafredi, they had Sylvain Cote, they had Calle Johansson. Those 4 guys were really good offensively. And, I think 3 of those 4 had 20 goals that year as defensemen. Like, it was crazy. So we were such an aggressive forecheck team. They were beating our forecheck back up the ice. So it was creating all these odd man rushes and making our defensemen hanging them out to dry. So we changed. We went to more of a passive forecheck, and in the neutral zone, we played more of a 1-4, which you don't see very often now. Now it's usually a 1-3-1. And one of the things we did, we really had to get Cicerelli out of the series. He was a critically important player for Washington then. So we would Scotty would get Bobby Airy on the ice as much as he could against him, and I would get Gordy Roberts on the back end as much against Dino as he could, because they had played together in Minnesota, and Bobby was such a good checker and a skater. So we didn't do a lot. We just identified what was hurting us the most. So I think you just identify one thing and fix it that way. You don't fix 20, you just fix one.
Yeah, because I would imagine, you don't want to go too crazy in the middle of the playoffs. I mean, you've already got to this point.
You do. Then the guys will lose faith. They'll say, all that stuff you told me before the series didn't work.
Yeah, we're just going to throw it out the window.
Throw it all out. Yeah. So that's why it was pretty cool. The first year we won in 91, we just created 7 points plan, 7 things we needed to do to beat whomever, whether it was Jersey, whether it was Washington, whether it was Boston, or whether it was Minnesota.
These were customized to each team?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Changed every. I was in charge. I was doing that. Every series changed it. And it was good. So we always have a 7-point plan. It was called a 7-point plan.
Nice. All right. Well, stepping outside of this series for a bit, Pierre, and I know, assistant coaching hirings and changes on
these guys matter. The ones in Winnipeg, those are good.
Yeah. So I want to talk about it, though, because I do love getting this. And obviously you can give us the insight you just gave us because you were in their shoes. So the Jets add Dave Spain and Dean Chenoth to their staff. Pierre, you know these guys. What are they going to bring to that team?
Dino will do a really good job with their defensemen. He really will. I like Dean a lot. First time I ever saw Dean coach, believe it or not, was a 2004 World Junior in Halifax. He was on the Canadian staff. I thought he did a real nice job with that defense in that season. That Canadian team lost in the gold medal game to the Americans. First time the Americans ever won the gold at the World Junior. But that's the first time I saw Dino's body of work. I thought he was great. Ends up going, a little bit Islanders, his old team, going down to Carolina and then moving up to Toronto. I think everywhere he's done a really good job. He communicates well with the defenseman. He was a defenseman. So I thought that was a good hire for Scotty Arniel in Winnipeg, especially with the way their team is trending. They might lose, Brendan Dillon. They're going to have to step in. They might lose Dylan DeMello. So they're going to have to find guys that can come in and play. So that's just, I like that. I've known Davis a long time, Davis Payne. He's a guy that's been a head coach in the league in Buffalo and in St. Louis. He's been a very successful coach in the minors, in Alaska in particular. He communicates well. He and Arneal probably will be on the same page a lot. And Davis is really good on power play. Very, very good on power play.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that will help Winnipeg. So I think they're two very solid hires.
And then, as we expected, I think people are kind of waiting for it to happen. But Guy Boucher is out in Toronto.
Yeah.
What do you see? You have any idea what they might do there?
I don't know. Is it official yet that Mark Savard's going?
I'm hearing that. I have not seen it made official yet.
So
it makes sense given the Berube connection.
Yeah, and he and Craig worked together in St. Louis. I did a lot of their games when they were together. And he's, an Ontario guy. I would think that he'd be coming back to Toronto, but I don't know that for certain. But I'd say that's probably the direction they're looking at.
Okay.
They need, looking at the staff they have right now, they probably need more of a power play influence guy. And that's Mark's kind of specialty. I know it struggled in Calgary. I know it did. Everybody knows it, but he's good with the power play.
No, he did a good job.
He was a really good power play player too.
Wow.
So I think they probably go that direction, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything formally.
All right. Now I'm going to tell you this, just speaking to a little birdie today, had a hunch that he believes Mitch Marner stays in Toronto, or at least to start the season. So my question to you, let's say hypothetically he does not get traded this summer. If he stays to start the season, is that too big? If they start to realize that they're not going to be able to reach an agreement to extend him, is that too big a move to make in season? And do the Maple Leafs then end up maybe regretting that they didn't move him in the off season?
I don't know.
Or does it matter when you make it? I mean, is it?
I don't know. I mean, to me, the biggest thing is with your new head coach, you ask the question as a manager, where does he fit in your lineup? What are your expected results from him? Because if the coach and the manager aren't on the same page right from the start, chances are for the player it's not going to work.
Right.
Because there's going to be expectation on one side and there's going to be expectation on the other, and they probably don't meet, and then you're going to have a problem. So I would say that it would probably be smart for Brad Treliving, which he probably already has. It's probably part of the interview process with Craig. How do you see Marner, and where do you see him fitting on our lineup? And what is your expectation for him points-wise? That should have been a series of questions to Berube.
Yeah, I would imagine that's happened. Yeah.
I would say so. If he stays, it means that Berube thinks that he can work with him, that his staff can work with him, and that they think they're a better team with him than without him. Here would be if I were the coach, my question would be, how are you going to make our defense better? And if Marner's the piece that has to make our defense better, you may have to do it.
Yeah.
You're not telling them what to do, but you're going to say, you ask the question, how's the defense going to get better?
Right. Where are you going to get that money? Better. Yeah. Where are you going to get that cap space?
Yeah. So you need to ask the question.
Right. I'm just always wondered. I mean, this is something not just with Marner, not specific to him, Pierre, but I've always tried to kind of figured that out is when you're dealing with a player of that magnitude, right? You don't want to get this trade wrong. I mean, you need to nail it if you're trade living.
No, you can't get it wrong.
Know?
I'm going to tell you something, though, that I've told you before. You can't be bullied by the media, and you can't be bullied by the fans, and you can't be reading Twitter and all that other stuff, or X, whatever it's called. Because I told you the story a long time ago. We traded Paul Coffey and we traded Mark Recchi, and we brought back Rick Tocchet, Shel Samuelson, and Kenny Reagan. We got crushed.
I know. I remember you telling me that. Yeah,
we got crushed in the media, crushed. And then when the trade worked out, it was like, who are those guys?
Yeah,
the better team.
Yeah,
but I'm telling you, if Craig Patrick didn't have the hockey fiber that he had in his soul, it wouldn't have been good.
Yeah.
Craig really made that work because he knew what we needed as a team. And we needed more of what Tocchet and Samuelson and Rega provided at that time than what Mark or Paul was providing for us. It was just, they were different players, all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what, Pierre, if I'm them, right, I meet with the agent, I meet with the coach, the GM and Marner, and everybody gets together. And you say, you see how they did it way back, and you see how they're still doing it in Tampa Bay with Steven Stamkos? That's how we want it right now. Yeah, keep it as no leaks.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a really good point, by the way, by you, Jimmy. But here's the problem with that. The
Here in
Tampa
Toronto is a different market.
is a way different.
Yeah.
So, you got how many insiders, Jimmy? I've talked about this with you off the air.
Yeah,
How many insiders you got there?
I know. It's
Oh.
insane.
So everybody's looking for their little piece of the pie and getting a scoop here, scoop there. And
It's hard. It's hard. Especially in this day and age, like you said, with social media and everything. It's just,
I don't do that. I'm reading stuff in the newspaper from all these different cities, and I'm going, that's not true. Like I know.
Oh, I know.
That's not true. And so I can only imagine what it's like on the social media stuff.
It's ridiculous. The stuff that gets floated that, like, I'll come to you. I've come to you a couple times. I'm like, can you believe this? Like, these are professional paid writers just throwing stuff out there. And I'm not saying that they're, trying to deceive the public, that they might not even know what they're putting out there is false, Pierre, because as I've admitted, I've been used. We've all us writers, we've been in those positions before where we've been used to get an agenda or a message out there. So they might not even know. So I'm not necessarily criticizing the writer or the reporter, but it's just amazing. Some of the stuff, and you and I are sitting back here and we're hearing completely different. And we know for a fact that that's not true. And it's still out there and people run with it. It's crazy right now.
Yeah,
So,
I remember a couple that you threw by me. I'm like, Jimmy, I don't know where you're getting that from. That's not true.
I know. And that's why I come to you first, like.
Oh, it's all right. But I'm just like, oh, that's interesting, but not going to happen.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. And then the other, okay, so we got that. And the other thing I want to bring up with you too, there was and again, this is just a rumor and we're not speculating, but Bruins fans out there want to know my take on this. So another Linus Ullmark potential trade destination that has popped up this weekend, Pierre, and I'll give the guys Dave Pignota at the fourth period had it, that the Buffalo Sabres could be interested in him. I don't understand how that would make sense. They've got Levi going. They've got the guy who I always murder his name, so I'm not going to try and say it right now. Uka. I'll just call him Uka. Yeah. So they got Uka, and it's just where would Linus fit in there?
Unless one of those targets is coming the other way.
Yeah. I don't see how it would be a fit there, but it was interesting. Like
Carolina seems like an opportunity for them.
Yep.
Colorado seems like an opportunity for
LA.
them. LA seems like an opportunity for them. New Jersey seems like an opportunity. I mean, if you were to ask me the tail of the tape on the record of all those teams, probably Buffalo would be the last place team.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
But anything can happen.
No, you never know. Well, I think there'd have to be a goalie going back the other way.
That's what I'm saying. There'd be a target involved going the other way. There's no question. A goalie.
Interesting stuff. But that's starting to heat up. We're only we're less than 2 weeks now, Pierre, outside of the draft. So as we said, I think there's going to be a lot of player movement in terms of the trade market.
Starting to be stuff.
Yeah, there is a lot of chatter picking up right now. So we'll see what happens. But we are working. We do not have a destination yet. I'm working on a place. So I don't want to say the name until it's certain. But once I have that name for you, the listeners and viewers, we will let you know. I can tell that if it is this place that that we're working on, you're going to love it. If you're in Vegas for the draft, you're definitely going to want to come by because it is a sweet spot. I did my research on it this weekend. I'm really hoping it comes through.
Through our buddy Tosi?
Yes. Our good friend from the Vegas Golden Knights, Eric Tosi, has been helping us out.
He's good.
Yep. Former Bruins PR man. He was with the Bruins when they won the Cup. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, hey, Pierre, I want to talk about, speaking of Vegas, a lot of betting that goes on in Vegas, obviously, and a lot of sports betting. So I want to tell the listeners again about our new sponsor. Again, we're going into the second week with them now. So let's talk right now about Betway, which is the leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on betway.com right now or scan that QR code right in front of you that my daughter has now been able to teach me how to do that, to join the action. You must be 18 plus and you must play responsibly, but head over there right now. I'll have another pick now. I didn't get that one right on Friday, but I don't think a lot of people did. I don't think anyone saw the Celtics getting blown out the way they did. But we will go to that at the end of the show. I will give you a pick for the NBA tonight. And then, of course, we'll have something for Game 5 tomorrow between the Panthers and the Oilers. And then, of course, I want to talk about our other sponsor, Pierre. I know some people actually in the Montreal area, so I'm going to be directing them to our other sponsor, TCS Customs and Logistics. They're going to need them soon. So unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting, TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For a no-obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. All right. I see some questions lining up here, so I said, why not? Let's go over there right now and get to them. We both got some stuff to do after, so let's get on the questions now. What do we have on a Monday afternoon? Jason Logan, what's up, Jay? Hi, gents. Out of all the great players that have not won a cup, who do you wish did? And I know there will be a lot and probably hard to answer my question, but I would say Pavel Bure. That's a great one, Jay. That's a great one. Came close in 94.
He did.
I would think of one that just retired, Pierre.
Do you have anybody?
Yeah, the one that just retired, Joe Pavelski. I really would have loved to have seen him get a cup.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I got one.
Go ahead.
Joe Thornton.
Joe Thornton's a great one. Really good one. I'll stick with the center position, Pierre. How about Adam Oates?
Do me a favor and check that Oates didn't win in 07.
Oh, wait, you're right. Was he on the Ducks then? Good call.
Check.
I apologize if so.
I need to make – it's a long time ago. I just –
Nope. He was on the team that lost in 03 to the Devils.
He was – okay. So
yep. And then he retired the next year. He played a couple games and retired.
That's the only one that was a tie-in for him.
Here's trivia for you, Pierre, that I wouldn't have thought off the top of my head. I wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
What team did he technically retire with? Like, who did he play his last game for?
Well, he was in Washington, but I don't know if that was his last one.
No, the Edmonton Oilers.
Really?
He played 60 games for the Oilers in the 03-04 season before the nuclear lockout season.
Huh. But I did a lot of games in Edmonton back then, too, for TSN. Gordon were there a lot.
Those are some tough years in Edmonton, though.
Well, were they ever?
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Were they ever?
Well, yeah, that's what I'd have there. Like I think Steve Thornton's a great one. Yeah.
Joe was really good. You know, I don't think Joe ever got enough credit. Joe was so good for a long time.
So consistent.
Just go look at the points.
It's amazing.
And look at the players he made around him better.
Yep.
A lot of guys.
I know. Remember
when they lost to Pittsburgh in the final, you could tell the window was closing there. And it was kind of over. I felt really bad.
Yeah, me too. I think Cam Neely is another guy that comes off the top of my head.
Cam's a good one. Really good one.
So
a lot of those. I mean, there are a lot of them.
Yeah. There's so many. And that just shows you.
Sean Rattel.
Yeah. Sean Rattel. Somebody put in there Jerome McGinley.
Iggy. Another one. So the one thing about Iggy, his moment, I know the cup matters a lot, but the moment of glory is the 02. Or sorry, the 2010 Olympic gold. That's
Iggy. You were right there.
I was. It was amazing.
Yeah, that must have been such.
It was amazing. I was just, oh my God, like I could hear it. I was going, he must have been screaming right in front of Ryan Miller.
Yeah, what a class act he is too. I'm really happy for his kid too. You know that he's going to make it too. So just shows you, Pierre, how hard it is to win that one, to win that trophy. Yeah. All right, next question. Kathleen. Hey, Kathleen. As great as McDavid is, breaking Gretzky's assist record in the playoffs, etc., what part of his game does he need to work on to become a Kopitar or Bergeron style player? Or does he need to? No, I think that's great. Well said by
Kathleen. That's a really good question. I've been telling Jimmy this for a long time. I mean, if there's one negative part to those superstar offensive players in Edmonton, they've never really been forced to play defense, and they play a lot of minutes. And if they don't have the puck and they're playing defense, the other team's probably scoring. They need to. All Draisaitl needs to be better at it.
Yep.
I think Nugent Hopkins has made a concerted effort for a long time to be better.
Yeah.
And obviously Connor does, but man, oh man, you can teach defense. You can't teach what he does. I'm just telling you can't.
But imagine if he was able to add that to his arsenal. I mean, he'd be like the perfect player.
So if you look at it, how many guys have we had? Barkov's like Kopitar and Bergeron. He's bigger. Jonathan Taves in his heyday was a lot like that. You start going around the league, though, over the course of time, Jimmy, there are not a lot of guys that have been like – those are elite at another level too.
Yes.
You know, so Jean Rattel was like that, you know. John was really like that.
How much in terms of adding that to his repertoire, Pierre, how much does a cup run like this help to make him realize that value of that part of the game?
I think one of the things that really helped them in this playoff, winning a Game 7 on the road in Winnipeg or in Vancouver, excuse me, and then the way they dispatched Dallas when a lot of people thought Dallas was a heavy favorite. And I think he realized, especially after he took the double minor penalty to start Game 1 in overtime.
Yep.
And then he scored. I think he realized how slight the margins are. And if you're the top dog and he's the top dog, you got to hold yourself to another standard. And I think he's learning that as he goes through this playoff. I really do. I think it's a big part of it.
All right. Next question. Jason Logan again. I know we talked about it roughly now with Canes putting Jake up for trade. Where do you think he's going? Where do you think he's going to do? Have more of an idea? Where do we think he's going to go up here? Where do you think's a good fit?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Why not back to Pittsburgh? I don't think it'll work, but back to Pittsburgh would be good. Somebody speculated maybe the New York Rangers.
That I could see.
Somebody speculated Chicago Blackhawks. That's why I'm not taking credit for this. I'm saying something because I just want people, if it was them, good for them. But I'm just telling you that other people have speculated it, not me. I've also heard Minnesota, but I don't know how they can find the money for that. Not this year, next year maybe. But,
we will see.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Chris Blue Shirts. My question for you guys, who are the two players that the Rangers need to have a deeper run next year? I'm thinking someone like JT Miller and Pavel Buchnevich. Your show is amazing. Keep it up. Well, Pavel's with the Blues now, right?
Yeah, JT's with Van.
And JT's with Van. So you're thinking like guys like that they could.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking internally too, because they've got some young guys that are coming. I mean, I'd like to see, now he's not ready for prime time to be a superstar, but Othman would be a guy that I think.
Yes.
You know,
I think Chris brought him up in a previous episode too.
He did, but I think he'd be a guy that would be really important. You know, Cooley's been up there, and I think he's going to be a guy that's going to break out a lot next year. So there's another internal guy. I just like to see it. I know they're talking about moving Barclay Goodrow. I mean, that's in the paper. We talked about it before.
Larry Brooks had that this week.
I don't know how that makes him better.
I don't either. He's exactly the type of guy you need in the playoffs. Like, I know maybe his price tag's a little high for a fourth liner, but I'm telling you, Pierre, that value, you get the most out of it in the playoffs.
So I'm just going to tell you, they're one win away from winning the Cup, Florida. They go Barkov, Bennett, Lundell, Stenlund. Okay? 4 deep.
Wave.
And the other teams can't keep up.
Nope.
They don't have that.
Physically and mentally.
And that's why I brought it up before the series started. I said, this Stenlund is something else, and his penalty killing is elite. And he's going to get a lot of chances to kill in this series. And if he does, it's going to be a problem for Edmonton. We talked about it because they're not going to score enough 5-on-5. Yeah, they had one big night. I know they had a big night in Game 4. But their power play's done nothing. Stenlund's a big part of it. So, anyways, long story short, I think you need more centermen there. I really do. I think you got to be bigger and braver and harder down the middle.
Yep, I'm with you on that. And good fight. I'm glad you brought Stenlund up. What a find by the Panthers. All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, what do you think of Brad Larson?
I know him really well. I was in Ottawa way back in the mid-'90s, my first time through there. I was basically in charge of pro scouting, and we had drafted Larson. Really hard player, very coachable, good person. He ended up getting traded. He was part of a deal to bring Jacques Martin, believe it or not, to coach in Ottawa. He went to Colorado, so that's how he never really got a chance to play in Ottawa. He's a really good hockey person. I think he'll help Calgary a lot. He was just hired, obviously, as an assistant coach, but a really good person. I think he's better suited to be an assistant because he's really good at developing players and helping develop players. And he learned a lot from John Tortorella when they were in Columbus together. So I think he's a good hire in Calgary. I really do.
I like it. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I don't know him personally, but I've heard great things.
Good. He's a good man, really good hockey man.
All right, next question. Sean Myers. Pierre, how do you feel about Iceman? I think we know, Sean.
All I'll say about him is just he scores. He scores. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're asking me if I'd have him on the ice in the last 2 minutes of a game with a 1-goal lead, I'd say no, I would not. But if you'd ask me, would he be on the ice if we're down a goal with 2 minutes to go, I'd say, yeah, he would.
Yep.
So it depends what you want. What are you looking for? If you need goals, he's a guy that's on your radar. If you don't need goals and need something else, we were just talking about the importance of two-way players. He's not your guy.
Right.
He'll learn to get better defensively because of who he's playing for at Boston University.
Right.
Pandolfo. He'll learn that. He definitely will. He'll learn that. But is he going to be an elite defensive player? No, he's not. He won't.
Yeah. But if you've got the guys in place to take care of that and you need scoring, then go for it.
He can score.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Marco Larabi. How far is Nick Suzuki from being in the conversation for Selke?
Yeah. I mean, pretty far.
It's going to be tough with Barkov now.
Barkov's in there. I mean, there are other guys, too, coming in the league. So it's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy for him at all.
But I think he's a good two-way player for sure.
He's a really good two-way player. Yeah. Marc Bergevin did some good things in Montreal and some questionable things in Montreal. One of the good ones, this is getting Suzuki. He deserves a lot of credit for that. It's him and the pro scouts. Suzuki was a heck of a pickup. Really good pickup.
All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, what is your hardest loss in the NHL playoffs that stung the most? I'll let you take it, Pierre, since you coached in the NHL.
Mm-hmm. That game for Washington, Pittsburgh in the first round.
That we were just talking about.
That was really hard. I don't think I went home that. No, I was at the rink till really late. I don't think I went home that night. That was hard. That was probably the worst one.
How did Pierre? As you went on? Sorry to sidetrack a bit, but as you went on, we talked about players compartmentalizing and how good the Panthers have been in it. As a coach, how did you learn to do that? Because I know it must be tough when you feel so responsible for the players and the game plan you lay down, and if it doesn't translate onto the ice, how are you able yourself to get sleep? I guess would be the question.
Just know you got to be better every day. You don't rest. One thing I can tell you about that business, if you start to think you're really good, somebody's going to pass you.
Oh, yeah.
You got to get better every day. It's kind of like when you're coaching a team at an international event, at a tournament, whether it's the Olympics, the World Under 18, the World Junior, every day you got to get better.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not getting better every day, you're not going to win. And I think it's the same when you're coaching. So you need to learn, you need to study, you need to be up to date, you need to be an expert on your players, you need to know who's having trouble at home, who's about to have a baby, all this stuff. It all factors in.
Tabs. Yeah.
So you're never done. And it's not, I mean, I think it's an amazing business. I think it's a fantastic business to be in. But I also know it's really hard. It's hard on the people at home that love you. It's hard on, your health.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy business.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Marco Larabi, do you think it's almost better that the Panthers got blown out versus losing a close game? This is what we were talking about before. Easier for Maurice to get their attention and focus on how hard it will be to close the team out in the next game.
Yes, Marco, I love it. Just totally agree with you. And I think that the fact they got kicked right in the pants is good. They'll be ready. Doesn't mean they're going to win. I didn't think they were going to win game 4. I really, truly didn't. But I think they're better suited to win game 5.
All right. Next question. NDG PJ. What's going on, PJ? Number 1 skater out of the queue. Good showings GH and U18 tourneys, also good at the combine. Why no love for Maxim Massey?
Okay, so NDG PJ, we will be talking more about the draft as we move out of the Stanley Cup final. There's love for all the players.
So keep that question for us, because we want you to ask it again.
Love for all the players. Some are better suited than others to make the move up. And I'm a believer that a lot of guys are getting missed. And I believe a lot of guys are getting missed because there's too much emphasis on numbers and not enough emphasis on the character factor. So,
yeah. Pierre, you talked about quickly, and I guess that's it. No more questions right now. But if you do have more, we're going to stay on for a few more minutes here. So feel free to shoot them up. You were talking about the 2020 draft being kind of a lost draft, so to speak, because of what was going on, not being able to scout these guys. Are we getting to the point? Are we at the point? Or we still have a ways to go where there are more people out there getting the eye test? Or did maybe Zoom and video and analytics and all that, I'm not going to say lazy is not the word I want to make, but rely too heavily on that, and there's not enough people out there getting the eye test right now?
I think some people are realizing that they made mistakes, and so they're putting more assets into eye testing
on the ground.
Yeah. I think if you would ask me that question 2 years ago, I would have said we're really trending the wrong way here.
Yeah, because I remember you talking about it.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago was not good. I think now people realize there have been some mistakes made. And so I think old school scouting is going to get more of an impact.
All right. Well, listen, we got no more questions to go here. We are going to give you my Betway pick of the day. Let's go.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
All right. I know I went with them on Friday and they lost, but I'm going to go again. I think that just like I got a feeling about the Panthers tomorrow, and I think that blowout woke them up. I think that blowout in Dallas for the Celtics woke them up. So give me the Celtics -6. And I'll tell you what, give me the over 30 points for Jaylen Brown. So there you go. There's my sick picks of the day for Betway. And remember, Betway is your leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Don't go with Murph. Go with Betway. Go on betway.com and scan the QR code right in front of you to join the action. Must be 18 plus and play responsibly. All right. Well, listen, like we said, apologies for not getting Jeff Marek, but he did text me here. He will make it happen later in the week. Just kind of a crazy time driving the kids to baseball and hockey and all that. So we know how it can go. We will get him on next week. I'm working on a couple other guests, as is Pierre, for this week. So we'll keep you posted with that. But until then, until tomorrow, he's Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. This has been another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.